This is a Soulfire production. Welcome to Mother. No, it's Mother. Welcome to Mother, the show where we can explore our inner mothers to actualize our greatest selves. Through interviews with incredible guests, live coaching sessions, and my own experiences, we're going to dive deep into embracing feminine values and reparenting ourselves. So be prepared to show up, hold space, and be mothered in a way you never have before, but have always needed. It's time we rewrite the Mother Code. Well, I am super excited for today's show. Welcome to Mother, Rewriting the Mother Code with me, Dr. Gertrude Lyons. And I have the wonderful honor and privilege to sit down and speak with Tamar Samuels. So welcome, Tamar. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Gertrude. I am so happy to be here.
Yay. Well, we're going to have fun. Tamar has just some wonderful wisdom, both from her journey and what she does and brings to the world that I know you all are going to get so much from. And I'm looking forward to even more getting to know you more and the beautiful work that you do. So I'm going to say some things about your particulars kind of in the world and then open it up to share kind of how you got to be doing what you're doing. So Tamar, registered dietitian, nutritionist, and co-founder of Culina Health. Tamar has a unique and holistic approach to healthcare, which integrates functional medicine, which I love, positive psychology, love, and behavioral change techniques that have all been pulled from her training in clinical nutrition and coaching science. She's helped countless people transform their relationship with food and their health to overcome a variety of health conditions. So Tamar is going to share kind of how she got to be doing that. But I also want to say, this woman's been doing some great work because it's been recognized, and she's shared in the Huffington Post. Well and Good named her one of the top holistic nutritionists in New York City. To me, that seems like that's all you have to say, because I'm sure there's a ton of nutritionists in New York City. So I think that's awesome, but also serves on the advisory board of Health Magazine. So wonderful work that you're doing, Tamar. And I'm excited that we get to talk about it and dig in today. So why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, just kind of sharing your journey, how you got here and to be doing what you're doing, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, speaking of mothering, I have major imposter syndrome. So hearing my bio, I'm always like, whoa.
Yeah, that's a big one for
do
us.
all those things.
Yes, I know. That's why I kind of like to say it sometimes. It's to remind, and when I hear it, it's like, whoa, okay, yeah. And yeah, to celebrate and honor it. I think that's a very healthy habit, right? In the positive psychology. It's
Yeah. Well,
so
thank you for
much
that
more
lovely
important.
introduction.
You're welcome. You are welcome.
So my journey really got started almost 10 years ago. I was struggling with a chronic condition called small intestine bacterial overgrowth. It's a GI condition. It's actually pretty cool because there's a lot more awareness about this condition now in not just the functional medicine community, but in conventional medicine and especially with registered dietitians. But 10 years ago, not too many people were talking about it. Now that we know much more about IBS mimickers like SIBO, before sort of GI docs and just generally speaking, people would kind of chalk all GI symptoms up to IBS. Oh, you must have IBS. So, nothing we can really do about that.
Yeah,
Thankfully, there's
right. The
actually
way things
more.
get generalized like that, it's so annoying. Okay, yeah, keep going.
Yeah. Thankfully now we have so much more robust research and testing and even medications to support people with IBS and SIBO. But 10 years ago, there wasn't much. So I actually saw a GI doc who had mentioned SIBO. She actually did do testing for me, and she was very much ahead of her game in terms of being ahead of the research on top of the most recent research. And I was diagnosed with the condition, but there really wasn't much treatment except for a handful of antibiotics, which I
Ooh,
took, and they did not work. Or they worked at first, but then, my symptoms would come back. And oftentimes for people who have SIBO, the condition is recurring. So maybe I should backtrack a little bit. SIBO stands for small intestine bacterial overgrowth. It's a
yes.
GI condition in which the microbes in our large intestine sort of relocate to the small intestine, which they're not
Oh,
really supposed to live there. And so that becomes
Hmm.
problematic because they are digesting our food earlier on in the GI tract than they should be, which tends to cause a lot of gas and bloating and discomfort with eating. And also with SIBO, it does some damage to the small intestinal lining, which is one cell layer thick. And so people with SIBO tend to have a lot of inflammation because their small intestine is hyperpermeable, which then causes a number of other food sensitivities. And it's sort of like cascade of
Yeah, ripple
really,
effect and yeah,
yeah, it's just super
yeah,
challenging to manage.
yeah. My daughter has a
And
friend with some I don't know if it's exactly what you're talking about, but she calls it IBS and it's yeah, so I'm definitely gonna put her in touch with you.
yes, we are here
Yeah,
to help.
yeah,
It's a super challenging condition. And I think,
yeah,
what I struggled with the most was managing it in terms of my relationship with food and also just chronic discomfort. Every time I eat, I would feel sick, incredibly bloating. I mean, I liken it to feeling and looking a couple of months pregnant,
yeah,
which
sure.
I'm sure the mamas out there know that being pregnant isn't always the most comfortable thing for a lot of women,
Mhm.
especially my pregnancy journey. But it's super challenging to manage. And with that, I started restricting a lot of food, sort of self managing my condition. And I started to get a lot of food fears and obsessive thoughts around food, and really was just constantly thinking about food. Can I eat out? If I do eat out, what am I going to eat? Am I going to be sick? Are there supplements that I can take?
Mm,
Can I wear this outfit because I'm going to be bloated? Like the fear of the unknown of what would trigger my symptoms
yeah,
and when and how bad they would be just really was damaging to my mental health and certainly
sure.
my relationship with food. And so I embarked on this journey over time and became a registered dietitian. I started my own private practice. And with that practice, I really became super passionate about working with patients in clinical nutrition and their relationship with food. But then I realized like people don't just change because you tell them to change, which was, a light went off.
Mhm.
And so I got really into coaching and I pursued my coach training, got my certification, and that's sort of how my specialty started to form. And here I am 10 years later. And as part of that journey, I synced up with my co founder, Vanessa Rosetto, who's also a registered dietitian. And she was actually my preceptor at Mount Sinai Hospital. And both of us, we were practicing care very similarly in that we were providing personalized, sustainable nutrition counseling in a way that was accessible through insurance. And so we were like, whoa,
Mm,
you're doing something very similar, even though you have a different like a different counseling style and a different specialty, our philosophy on nutrition is very similar. And we created Culina Health. And over the last year, we have become a startup. And we
wow.
now have 40 registered dietitians and counting.
Wow.
And yeah, and we are providing personalized clinical nutrition care that integrates behavior modification and lifestyle medicine to support patients across the country. And we take insurance. So that's my journey.
That's beautiful. A couple questions just specifically about, how you work and operate because it was so important to you to get the personal coaching regarding that such that you got certified so you can help people. So is that part of that's all integrated so the people that are part of Culina Health are also coach certified or is that separate in there? How have you kind of I'm this is totally out of my curiosity because it's, so interesting.
Yeah, yeah, such a great question. So all of our dietitians they're not all certified, but they are all trained in behavior modification and coaching science. So they all are very well versed in behavior modification, how to support our patients, not just providing education, but by supporting
Yeah,
behavior change specifically. So we have
specifically.
very comprehensive training for our RDs.
Yeah, so they get specific training from you all. They don't just get to come in like, "Yeah, I have a, nutrition certification degree, at any and all those things, then they go through your training specifically,
That's
which is
right.
your secret sauce.
That's right. Yeah, all of
Right.
our dietitians are dietitians, and so I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with the difference between a nutritionist and a dietitian, but actually it's kind of the wild west out there when it comes to
Yeah.
the
I
term.
exactly. That's why I think it's important to kind of underline some of those specifics, right? When you're just starting to look for something like this and not know the difference, but it does make a difference, right?
Yeah, yeah. So actually there is no standard of practice for the word nutritionist. So you actually never know what you're going to get when you see a quote unquote nutritionist. They are not nutritionists are not healthcare professionals.
Mhm.
Whereas registered dietitians, we have a standard of practice. We have to maintain our credential. There's several different types of specialties within the registered dietitian credential, but all of the registered dietitians at Culina Health are all clinical dietitians. So with that comes very comprehensive training in clinical inpatient and outpatient. All of our dietitians have at least a year of experience working in
Mm.
hospital settings. And so we have this really strong clinical background, but at Culina, we do an additional training around counseling and behavior modification and personalized medicine and lifestyle medicine. And that's what makes Culina so special.
Sounds like it. But I'd love to give kind of a picture or, maybe even an example of like what it looks like to use positive psychology and behavioral modification, and we're not just talking about, I mean, this is a significant issue, IBS, but this is all of us, with wanting to have the healthiest eating and, nutrition possible. And we have bad habits, and I eat things that I know don't make me feel great because they taste so good, and
Mhm.
things like that.
Or a number of
So
other reasons, right? We don't just eat in
yeah,
a vacuum. We eat for so many different reasons. It's
yeah,
cultural, it's emotional, it's accessibility. That nutrition is so complex and such an important part of our lives. We eat for celebration, we eat for social contact, right? It's so important to think about nutrition as a part of our lives that isn't just supporting our health, but just supporting our social health, our mental health, right? And so when we care for people around their nutrition, we have to take into account all of those things. We
mhm,
have to really understand what contributes to somebody's eating pattern, their health literacy, and what are sort of the underlying clinical things that we can do to provide our expertise, but also behaviorally, right? If we
yeah,
want someone to change, we can't just tell them to change.
yeah.
It doesn't work. I wish it worked. It would be a lot easier.
I know, right? Just yeah, here's the formula, follow this and we'll just pretend you don't have emotions or feelings or, family histories around food, and of course it makes sense in our we can even get it. It's not like people argue with like, yeah, I understand that this is good for me, but the actual process. And I think that's something that's so important. I think in our culture today, everything is like 5 easy steps to great abs or, like fix your eating, with these 10 steps or, in 2 months or whatnot. And we think that's how it's supposed to be. So if it's not that, then one, we think we failed. And two, we're just mad that it's a process, or mad that, shifting my habits or imagining a new lifestyle we know is going to be positive, but the shifting of it is going to be a process and I don't know what your experience is. I know, as a life coach and working with people, that's some of the biggest battle is getting that this is a journey and a process that can happen, unfold. Some changes can be really quick right away. And the low hanging fruit of something that's easy to change, or try, but then some of the deeper embedded patterns and wiring takes hard work. And I think what you're talking about, right? And wouldn't that be nice if we could just hand them the instructions and they do it? But that's not
Yeah.
it's not going to happen.
My co-founder always says, nutrition is not quick and sexy. And we're selling people a false hope when we tell them that they can take a supplement or do 5 quick tips and change their lives. Yeah, there's definitely some low hanging fruit and we can get some quick wins. And those
Mhm.
wins are super valuable for supporting self efficacy and confidence and building confidence and changing people's relationship with themselves around their health. but it's still going to require work, right? And that's why people need support, right?
I
I
know.
wish that everybody knew they can have support from someone who specializes in this area that also takes their insurance. And thank you for helping to spread the word about that, Gertrude.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if people knew that they can have support in doing this, the process so much easier. And I think people struggle with their health and achieving their health goals, and it feels like this vicious cycle. And they look to the internet, they look to powders and potions and supplements and influencers, and it doesn't work. So,
Yeah.
what does work is, of course, personalization, right? So,
Hmm.
making sure that you are not just trying a blanket diet or, Googling something and following recommendations that you find on the internet. In order for us to achieve behavior change, we need to understand our motivations for behavior change. What is our why? How can we connect our values and our strengths to the work that we're trying to do? Often people
Hmm.
feel so much shame around their health because they've been unsuccessful for so long, or maybe they've been treated poorly by other healthcare providers.
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack when it comes to our health. It's deeply personal, and really having a better understanding of why you're doing this work can really help to foster motivation and confidence. So, really doing that work with understanding your why, understanding what motivates you, what is powerful, figuring out how you can connect to that on a regular basis is
Yeah.
really important. And really like shaping your future, right? Having a clear vision of what it is that you want, we are a strength based, goal based, our process is goals driven. But
Hmm.
those goals are driven by our patients, not by us. So
Yeah.
I think that's
We
something
don't
that,
tell them what their goals should be. No, that's
no.
so much more empowering, of course.
Yeah, and that's like very non-traditional for most healthcare providers.
Mm,
You go to a healthcare provider and they tell you you have to lose weight, or you have to, eliminate these foods, or you have to manage your stress better, right? Like it feels like a little bit of like we are telling you what to do. And
yes.
while as experts, we're here to give you education and empower you to make changes based on like evidence-based recommendations, at the end of the day, you're the one who has to make the change, not us, right?
Yeah.
So, working with our patients to co-collaborate on goals is something that is at the core of what we do. It's not about the goals that we think they should do. We're certainly here to say these are the evidence-based recommendations. This is what's worked for our patients. But at the end of the day, we need to work with our patients to make that personalized and very specific to them.
Yeah. Which is, yeah, I think that's, such a key part of this, right? Because healthcare in general, has become such a ginormous, business. When you get to those scales, it's like, well, we have to just kind of slot people into, if you have like these few symptoms, then it must be this, and here's what you do, as opposed to the time it takes to you give personal attention, to really try and uncover and look at the nuances that any particular individual has that might be a little bit different. So, you might have this person take this supplement and, look at it this way where it's totally different, even though on paper they might look exactly the same, but by actually being in relationships, part of what I'm hearing in this conversation, Tamara, is, and I'm really on this thinking lately, just in general, like in work I'm doing, talking to, it's like the really good work can't happen unless we're bringing in the science, and the emotions, right? The left brain and the right brain, the feminine and the masculine, if we want to look the yin and yang, like,
Mhm.
you know, just kind of intuiting it all. I think there's a lot of credence in that. But when we have science, that can show some of the chemical aspects of it, the studies that showed, well, people who did this got these results and it worked. It all works together, but not, one or the other, but what you're talking about, which takes more time, which is why I think we've been failing in our healthcare system because we have to, healthcare providers have to see like 100 people a day, and
Yeah.
what's gonna lose out is the actual relationship and rapport and getting to know someone. So I love hearing when people are dedicating, themselves to that, to the and not buying into that model, and have the impact that you want to have in that way. That feels so good. Hi, I'm so excited to share with you my 2024 Spring Equinox Self Mothering Retreat that's happening this March 2024. And I would love for you not only to consider it, but to attend. But in considering it, hey, just knowing that you would be leaving cold weather, if that's the space that you're in, and coming down to just magnificently beautiful, warm, nourishing place of Zihuatanejo, Mexico. Zihuatanejo meaning land of the goddess women, and coming to really take time for yourself. Okay. And that I am learning more and more isn't just a nice thing to do or something extravagant or something selfish. It's essential. And I really want you to take it seriously, to consider, just think about what would it take for me to go. It's a 5.5-day retreat, getting from where you are, getting there, landing there, and then being in a space that is all about you. It's all about nourishing you. It's all about tuning into you, using everything around us, the nature, the food, the beautiful people, the rituals, ceremonies. I bring it, we really bring it. And we go deeper and deeper as the days go on, and we release, we let go, we bring in what is nourishing, what is empowering, what is that space of just really divine feminine energy. And we do it in the community of women. It's not for everyone. I will be honest, if the idea of leaving and not making it work, or it's just too hard, not for you. If the idea of, spending that amount of time inwardly focused and going to that level of self-awareness doesn't sound like something you're willing to do or put the time and energy into, then it's not for you. And it's good to know that, right? So this is for people who are serious about what it means to mother themselves, what it means to take time for ourselves, and that gift and what that gift can bring to us. It was originally right after my fall retreat. It filled right up. But now some people, it turns out, are not able to come. So I do have a handful of openings. And if you're listening to this and you're willing to take that step, please reach out to me. We can do a discovery call, or you can put a deposit down. I would love that. And you can do that by going to my website, www.drgertrudelyons, DrGertrudelyons.com. Go to events, and there you go. It'll all be there. There's a beautiful page there for you to explore. I look forward to hearing from you and then seeing you on my spring retreat.
Yeah, the
I have,
system is definitely a little bit broken, right? Like you said, we're
yes.
we're physician burnout is at an all-time high. I mean, we are supporting people's lives. Physicians are on the front lines of
Mhm.
healthcare, and they have some of the highest rates of suicide, right? Like everything is challenging, and so there's a lot of work to do. But we're lucky as registered dietitians who take insurance. We get to see our patients every single week for the most part. So
Yes.
a lot of people have great coverage depending on their insurance plan. And so that gives us the time and the space to do the work that actually moves the needle, so to speak, in terms
Mhm.
of health outcomes.
Well, and I love it because, with the insurance component, you can reach a wide range of people, not honestly just the people who could afford to pay for it out of pocket, So I
That's
love
right.
that this, your model allows for that expansiveness, which is also really beautiful. So we've touched on it and kind of talked about the inner work that needs to happen, when we're working with in this arena. So can you talk a little bit about, like, I'm not, putting you on the spot to talk about yourself personally, but you can either use yourself or, an example of a client, obviously not using their name or someone, what does it look like to do the inner work around this? If you could give kind of some specific examples, like what is some mindset or beliefs that you've worked with people to change so that they could be successful?
Yeah, yeah. I'm happy to talk about my personal journey and can also talk about some that of my patients as well. But for me personally, I literally, Gertrude, I did all the things. I got all of the tests. I went to like 5 conventional medicine specialists. I did pelvic floor PT. I went to a rectal surgeon. I went
Mm,
to a GI who specializes in motility. I tried the medication. I tried the alternative nutrition stuff. I saw a naturopath doctor. I
mm,
saw a chiropractor. I, like, I literally did all the things to feel better.
yeah.
And the journey of doing that was very frustrating and exhausting. And
Mhm.
I think for me, I really had to take a step back and really do a data collection, right? Like, what has worked? I've done all of these things. What has made me feel better? What hasn't made me feel better?
Mm,
Um, is like what's happening with my stress levels? Is the stress of pursuing all of this testing and doing all of this testing and trying to find answers causing more stress that's actually contributing to some of my GI symptoms?
mm.
The brain and the gut are really intimately connected. And so studies show that people with IBS, for example, are much more likely to have anxiety and depression, and vice versa. We don't really know what came first, the chicken or the egg, but our gut produces more serotonin than our brain does, right? And so we know that stress does have an impact on our gut health, right?
Mm.
And I really had to think about my experience with stress. And I in my personal history, I have quite a lot of trauma from my childhood. And so revisiting that trauma was a big part of me sort of working through the stress that was exacerbating my GI symptoms. And of course, I did that with the help of a therapist, and continue to do that. And that seeing the results of that really helped to change my relationship with food, and being able to see a tangible direct impact between my trauma and how that manifests behaviorally and in my thought patterns, and then that manifests physically with my gut. And so seeing that and like really
Mm.
leaning on the data and collecting that data, understanding that data, and being able to be empowered by the data really helped to support my changes in my mindset and my relationship with food, which then helped to support my symptoms. Of course, I did a lot of work with managing my condition medically and from a
Sure.
nutrition perspective, but coming at it from a holistic perspective and a data driven perspective really supported mindset shifts, which then supported my behaviors, which also supported my outcome.
I love that. Thanks for bringing that piece in, because I think once people can, kind of start picturing themselves, and well, and the thing I really, and I'm glad you were willing to share it, is that aspect of you don't know how our what's happened to us in the past is impacting our physicality. It isn't always a direct correlation, right? But I love how you brought in, like, why is the stress of my life impacting my body this way? But oh, another piece of it is this deeper work from the trauma from my past. And wow, isn't it interesting that as I work on that, these modalities that maybe I tried but weren't working are having a better effect. It's not exactly what you said, but I'm thinking about my own experience, from
Yeah.
some of this is just how intertwined the emotional aspect is. And, things, I mean, our cells have emotional memory. There's things hanging out in our body from our past that until we, you know, kind of plumb those depths. And I think sometimes our body's either trying to give us signals to like work on it, or it's just a matter of course that, something is going to show up in our life in some way that hopefully we get the listen to the sign that like, oh, maybe this is a good time for me. Now, ideally, we don't wait for those times and we just proactively, decide to live our best life and get the most out of it.
If
Even when
only.
things are going great. So yeah, looking at, we'll dig into that work anyway. But often as humans, it takes some sort of transition or difficulty or challenge to prompt us, to do it. And Yeah, I'm thinking about particularly when it comes to kind of this aspect of food and health in our bodies. And I share this story a lot. So somebody's probably heard it on my podcast before, but the one aspect of it that I'm particularly relating to here is when I started on my conception journey. The first thing that happened was I wasn't getting a period after I went off birth control. So luckily, I was kind of in a space already where I would looked at things fairly holistically. It wasn't, but so I wanted to kind of get everyone's opinion, on what was going on here and what I was going through. And it just became so clear to me that if I didn't know that a holistic approach, and getting different voices from different arenas was useful, including the emotional component, I probably would have just stuck with the typical Western medicine, and that was kind of very formulaic and, oh, you're not getting your period. Oh, okay, we'll put you on this pill and that will help you ovulate. And then if that doesn't work, then I'll send you to a fertility specialist. And if I didn't know any better, I'd be like, okay, that's what I do. But I don't know what exactly path that would have taken me on. But if I hadn't also then brought in, so then I went to an MD acupuncturist. So she, kind of had her foot in both camps, so to speak. And
Hmm.
she's like, well, did she mention that, you're underweight? And, I wasn't like, I didn't have an eating disorder, but, it probably could have been borderline of, not, so I was probably a good 10 pounds underweight.
Hmm.
And, she's like, that might be impacting. And, but she had the foresight to say, not just say like, so gain weight, and then you'll fix it. It was like, I can tell you to gain weight, but until you work on emotionally, what that is to you, you know, I mean, you might gain it, you might not, but it's this just whole thing isn't going to work as well as you might think. So,
Yeah.
I had some major, epiphanies deciding to go on that journey that never would have come to the surface if I wasn't like digging in deep, and a lot of it was around fears of having a womanly body that that could have a baby because I was so actually terrified of it and afraid. But who,
Yeah.
I in my mind, in my conscious mind, it was just like, well, you're just having trouble. And of course you want to have a child, but my body was giving me a whole lot of other information that had I not listened to it, I wouldn't have uncovered that. And then that's when things started to shift, right? That's when my body, started reacclimating. But until I hit that point, I was doing the things, but it wasn't working, so to
Yeah.
speak. So I wanted to share that to add to it because this, just reinforces that so much and just how important it is. And I think about and I work with, a lot of women who are either, deciding if they want to have children, but are, just getting started. And in our culture, it's like there's this easy answer, like, well, just start taking premarital
Prenatal.
prenatal vitamin. That's like some magic thing that like gets your body ready, for conception. Like that's and we want that one answer. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm certainly not against that. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's so much more. And I think that's what you're providing people. And I'm so excited about is this bigger picture and journey of the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for sharing that story. It's so powerful. I think there's so many women, and which I'm sure you've talked on your podcast quite a bit about, who have struggled with fertility. I myself also struggled to get pregnant for 3 years, and you know, I'm- I don't want to say I'm the picture of health because we all have things that we can work
Sure.
on, but my nutrition is pretty rock solid, and certainly prioritize movement and maintaining a body weight that supports my health overall. And for me, it was more stress driven. I tried to get pregnant for 3 years. It wasn't happening. That was very stressful. My feelings of
Mm.
inadequacy, feeling like my body was failing me. I did IUI twice. It didn't work. And then over the pandemic, couldn't do any fertility treatments. And of
Mhm.
course, I got pregnant
Yeah,
naturally, which, happens all the time. So they
it
say.
does.
I
Well, I just
think,
got goosebumps though. I don't want to dismiss it. I think that just what we're talking about, right? Like you were relaxed. You were like, well, we'll just, see, you didn't have probably there were other things that you weren't feeling as pressured about. And, that was just kind of that next thing that needed to happen. Yep.
yeah, exactly. I will say at the same time, there's so many women that I've worked with who nutrition interventions, other lifestyle interventions around physical activity, regulating hormones, weight loss, weight gain has had a huge impact on their fertility, right? And so I
Yep.
think that's where the personalization is so important. We can't just
Yeah.
assume somebody needs to lose weight or gain weight or eat, a better diet or exercise more, exercise less, right? There's so many nuances when it comes to our health. And the personalization is so important. I mean, I've had patients who I'm like, wow, you have multiple medical conditions that affect your fertility, and you've been on birth control for, 20 years, and you got pregnant right away.
Yeah.
Right?
What?
That's
Right.
amazing. Like, I am
Yeah.
so happy for you. Where at the same time, there's women who have never been on birth control, have no medical conditions that impact their fertility, are already, practicing eating a balanced diet and exercising, and are struggling with getting pregnant. So
Mhm.
it's such a, as I said, it's so nuanced, and we can't just use food and our weight exclusively to support our health. It has to be multifactorial.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And I'm thinking about something I'm making somewhat of a leap, but not really, because I want to, bring in this context of mothering ourselves. Cause to me, this is all about, this aspect of, the work I do in rewriting the mother code is most important person we need to mother is ourselves because, we're mothering everything, and everyone. But this process and what we're talking about here with, this approach is, you know, what's right in line with mothering ourselves because it's not any one piece of it, it's all of it, together and doing the deep work and working that part. And then I'll often say sometimes, when I coach people or, working with people like, okay, well, you've been doing all this great work and you're doing well, but now we have the Olympics or kind of the, your big test is coming up of the holidays, right? And holiday time. So, there's a whole different pressure, a whole different triggers, for people that come up in the holiday time. And even if you don't think that you participate or practice or are part of a holiday, you're still in the it's still in your atmosphere and somebody is around you and you're getting invited to something. But are there any particular things you do or kind of bring up specifically or weave in around the holidays that support your clients?
Yeah, such a good question, right? I love, just to kind of go full circle here, talking about the low hanging fruit.
Yes.
So we're usually spread pretty thin around the holidays. And
Mm,
I think it's really important for us to lean on that low hanging fruit that we
yep.
know best supports our health overall, right? So, what are the things that you are already doing or that you can do that aren't a heavy lift that make
Yeah.
you feel good, right? For me, it's prioritizing physical activity. I know that when I exercise, even if it's just for 20 minutes, it has a huge impact on my energy levels, my mood, my mental clarity, right? And so if I can, of course, most dietitians are type A and we're all perfectionists. And as a mother, I can no longer do that,
Yes.
which has been helpful.
Yeah.
And so, I tell my patients the same thing. And we at Culina, our philosophy is to really encourage people to lean on the low hanging fruit that we know
Good.
has the biggest ROI and be flexible with yourself, right?
Good.
I know that physical activity is game changing for my mental and physical health. And so that's what I'm going to prioritize. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to do, a 1 hour full cycle class 5 days a week and get up at 5 a.m. Right. So for me, it's about being flexible, right? Like this morning, I
Mhm.
went for a 20-minute run outside and that was it. Sometimes I'll just stretch. But I'll stretch for 20 minutes and like get out the tension in my hips, which tends to
Mm.
be really tight. And that really helps to support like a release for me. And so while there are other things that I would like to do, sometimes I can't do them because of the holiday season. So I really manage my own expectations, shift my goals to
Oh, good.
understand that, this is a crazy time of year, both emotionally and environmentally. We are running around, we're traveling, we are going out more. it's time for us to take that into consideration and make more realistic goals for ourselves that we know are going to still continue to support our health. So that
I love
is
that.
really helpful for a lot of people.
No, it really is, and I think it's, having compassion, allowing in the reality, of like and not saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna stick to everything I'm already doing," and know that we need to be a little flexible at the holidays. And what I really liked is like, what's the plan that feels right to me? What is gonna work? And then I think you said something like this, but I'm thinking about how I know for me, if I like go off that plan even a little, it's like, well, oh, I already messed up. So I'll just throw the whole thing out and, to really give myself a lot of leeway. And so I don't like just, you know, completely go off the deep end, so to speak, but give myself, I want to keep some parameters and
Yeah.
do it because I know I'll feel better. But I think the remembering, oh, I'll know I'll feel this does make a difference, and then really celebrate myself when I achieve like what I set out to do. I think those everything that you said are such great. It's a great mindset, to have during it, and you might set specific goals, but I think it's a time to kind of relax on them a little, but know that I'm going to be optimal if I keep it up to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think it's about being intentional, right? I think a lot of people,
Yeah.
for example, struggle with alcohol during this time of year. And so if you know that you want to drink for joy or for relaxation, that's fine. But if you also know that there's a point past of
Hmm.
drinking being enjoyable or relaxing, whether that's like going out however many and drinking however many days in a row, or maybe there are a certain number of drinks that you know is your limit. Being intentional about that stuff, right? So instead of saying I'm just not going to drink because I want to be healthy and I want to lose weight or whatever your goal is, we can say,
Hmm.
okay, well, I know I'm going to have 4 events this week. I'm going to really want to drink at this event, at 2 of the 4 events. And, I know that once I have more than 2 or 3 drinks, then I start to feel sick. I wake up the next day and I don't feel good. I don't sleep well. So I'm going to limit it to 2 drinks, during those 2 occasions, right? So that's how you find something that's personalized and balanced,
Right.
that supports your mental health, but gives you the space to be flexible and have joy and experience some fun.
Yes. No, that's wonderful. I love it. And I'm going to ask you to kind of share how people can reach you, get in touch with you, and all that. And it'll be in the show notes because then I want to like ask you one last question before we actually like officially wrap up. So, what are any and all of the ways that people can learn about you, Culina Health, and everything? Point them in all the directions.
Yes, yes. Well, I am excited to say that we actually offer this incredible free service to patients who are maybe interested in working with us, but are a little bit unsure or have a ton of questions. We offer free discovery calls. So
Oh,
anyone
great.
can book a call with us, and talk through our process. We also do matching on those calls so you can speak with our coordinators to have a better understanding of who our team is and who might be the best person to support you on your journey.
Nice.
We can talk through insurance. So you can book that free discovery call on our website, culinahealth.com. And we have a ton of availability, so you can, book a time throughout the week. You can also find us on Instagram. Our handle is at Culina Health, and you can find me on Instagram at tamarsamuels.rd. And we have a ton of free content on both of those platforms. My
Mhm.
co-founder Vanessa also has a really awesome platform. She's at Vanessa Rosetto RD. And so, yeah, you can find a ton of cool free stuff on our Instagram and on our website.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes that, like help our brain get over, the concept of possibly trying something new, right? Is to get questions answered and talk to someone. And I love that you have these ways and or learn something like you said, via your website or things that you share on Instagram. So and Culina is Culina Health, just
Yeah.
so I happen to have know people with the last name Culina, which is Colina. So
Oh,
um,
Culina with a U. It's Latin for kitchen.
oh, good. Oh, I was going to
Mhm.
ask how you got the name. So I'm so glad you said that because I forgot. That's beautiful. Okay, so we can find you those ways. Obviously, we'll be sharing this to as many people as possible to find out. And I was thinking this is a great time to get in contact with you because a lot of people think like, oh, I'll start the new year with you know, looking at my health and, get a fresh start. So I would imagine this is like the perfect time. So it's a great way to start off your year. Okay. Well, the question I always ask my guests and love there's no it's not a test. No right or wrong answer. And I always love the answers that I do get, which is what does rewriting the mother code mean to you?
I think so. I'm a new mom. My daughter is
Yeah.
1.5.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. I think for me as a working mom, I have, to be completely transparent, struggled a ton. It's
Hmm.
really hard. I know everyone can relate that being a mom is hard. And certainly the working moms out there, there's a added layer of difficulty. And so I think for me, it's about giving myself grace, knowing that I am a good mom, I am a good
Hmm.
co-founder, right? There is no good or bad. It's about learning
Hmm.
and growing and growth and being gentle with myself, doing the best that I can, but also to go back to this kind of holiday situation, managing my expectations, knowing that
Yes.
I have a lot going on in terms of my responsibilities and I'm not going to be perfect in at any of those responsibilities and that's okay.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And this is particular a time because there's all that you're navigating and dealing with as a mom and then a mom who has a business, so you have multiple jobs, and careers once you, so we have, cultural beliefs and then you get to the holidays and so it just heightens, right? That's why I call it the Olympics of like dealing with all this stuff because
That's a
everything gets
lot.
like, it's a lot. So I love what you're saying about like thinking about it for yourself and like what is going to be a meaningful time for you and how do I navigate all of this that feels right to me? And that's what I was hearing that I love and want to underline for you. Well, this has been so fun and such a pleasure. I'm so excited that we got to be together and talk and it has me thinking of a number of things as I go into the holidays and just for myself, my health and all that good stuff. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gertrude. It was such a pleasure meeting you. I'm glad I can be helpful for your holiday mindset shifts.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope other people get something out of it, but I know I did. Good.
That's all that matters. Each one
That's
teach
all that
one.
matters. Exactly. Thank you so much for choosing yourself and taking the time to listen to this podcast. As always, please rate, review, and subscribe to Mother. Wait, no, subscribe to Mother. It helps other people who need this message, AKA all women. Well, actually, everybody, men included. I'm honored to have you on this journey in mothering yourself. Remember, change is uncomfortable, but it's beautiful and it starts with us. And if you can't wait until next week's episode, follow me on Instagram and LinkedIn at Dr. Gertrude Lyons or at my website, drgertrudelyons.com. I'll see you next time.